Once upon a campfire, there was an ex-soldier who had a dream. And one night, he called his friends to his fire and shared with them his vision. And as friends often do, they asked, "What can we do to help make your dream come true?" And that's when Wounded Warriors Weekend was born. When I went to Nam, like so many others, I was just a kid at the time. Years later, when General Calvin Waller got me involved in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I realized what a profound effect the wars had had on my life. I guess that's why I got to thinking about what all the youngsters were experiencing in the most recent conflicts that our troops had been involved in, like Bosnia and Iraq, and then Afghanistan. That's what my best friend Jimmy and I talked about a lot.
Wounded Warriors started out at a campfire last fall with Blake Emmons and I. We do a lot of campfires. We sing songs and write songs and play guitars. And Blake just said, "You know what I'd like to do?" He's a vet himself. "You know, there's some of my wounded buddies that I'd just love to bring them up fishing. You know, maybe a half a dozen of them." And from there, it absolutely mushroomed.
And that's honestly how it started. Jimmy and I had no idea how to go about it. So we decided, well, best thing to do is go and talk to the mayor. That's what we did.
Well, you had Blake and Jim walk into our civic offices, and he says, "We've got an idea." And really, it was a dream. And I couldn't say yes fast enough because everything good was going to come of this. And it was something that just tugged at your heartstrings. It was something that was the right thing to do.
Right from the get-go, Mayor Lawrence Rosbad was on board totally. Why, he even arranged for the town council to proclaim Wounded Warriors Weekend by special proclamation. So now what do? Well, we better go and see the head of the Royal Canadian Legion. And that's what we did.
When I heard about it, I thought nothing would fit better with what the Legion's all about than doing something for veterans. And in this case, it was our new veterans, and we don't get a chance to do that up here very often. So I just thought it would be a perfect opportunity to get involved with the new veteran.
One more key ingredient to our project was this man, Captain Wayne Johnston. He's the founder of Wounded Warriors Canada. And I'll never forget the day he first told me, "Blake, for every soldier who's lost an arm or a leg, there are at least 100 more who have lost their souls." It's now known as PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
I call it the invisible bullet. It can manifest in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, 5 months. And I think we as a nation need to talk about it more, make it more comfortable to talk about.
I think it's important right now for me to take this opportunity to explain what post-traumatic stress disorder is and the effect it can have on our troops and their families. PTSD is a painful, ugly weight that burdens many more souls than even you or I can imagine. Our soldiers pride themselves on being hard, and they're hard because they know they must prevail over those who attack us. This immense pressure is what I believe keeps soldiers who suspect they may be suffering with PTSD from reaching out for help. A soldier would rather die than show weakness. Instead, some of those that need help bear the weight on their own. When PTSD transfers from the battlefield to the home front, this disorder quickly becomes a family affair. So set an extra plate at dinner tonight. PTSD is joining you. Secondhand trauma is real, and if it lingers untreated, it can be just as scarring as having PTSD yourself. For children, the exposure to PTSD is especially toxic. If you know somebody who has served in combat operations or is a firefighter, or perhaps someone who's worked in medical trauma, such as nurses or EMTs, or maybe a police officer, then you also likely know somebody who has not asked for help, but needs it. The motivating force behind our Wounded Warriors Weekend was to let these brave young men and women know that they're not alone, and we care, and we simply wanted to do our part to help in their healing process. Now, for Jimmy and I, the question was, who wanted to help? The answer came back loud and clear. Everybody. It was like heaven had opened the volunteer gates and sent us a host of supporting angels. My friend Hugh Wagner at the Grain and General Services Union said, "Blake, we're a band of brothers too, you know. We owe them. We're in." The Saskatchewan Union of Nurses, who totally understood what PTSD was all about, they were next. Jimmy's friends at Lund Motors, they stepped up and gave us a boat, motor, and trailer. CJVR CK750 told me, "Blake, we want to be their voice." Saskatchewan Transport told us we'd be honored to have them ride with us. Ronan volunteered to build whatever it takes. The Elks, the Royal Purple, the Lions, the Knights of Columbus, they all stepped up. Rolling Pines and Evergreen golf courses opened their fairways to all the Wounded Warriors and whoever wanted to join them. WestJet, they worked miracles in flight scheduling. Berta Hopp put the word out to all the legions across the province, and they were all proud to join in. Every day it seemed like somebody new would join our team, and in our final count, there was over 100 sponsors and over 500 volunteers, everyone donating to the best of their ability. What I heard time and time again was the heartfelt words, "Blake, we owe it to them, and we're proud to do our part." Well, friends and neighbors, the big day finally arrived. Thanks to WestJet, all 112 Wounded Warriors arrived in Saskatoon within an hour of each other. First in were the Canadians, led by our friend, country music icon Gordy Tapp. I gotta tell you, my heart swelled with pride because the airport was packed with well-wishers, media, and all sorts of dignitaries. And then came our American brothers and sisters. And once again, the greeting they received was awesome. The greetings and thank yous didn't stop there, though. Not by a long shot. All along the route our cavalcade traveled, we were greeted by people waving flags, holding signs, waving and saluting. By the time we hit Prince Albert, we'd already teared up several times. Emotions were running high. And then, looky here, the Northern Lights Casino and a whole passel of our grateful older vets threw us an incredible look. And they topped it all off with a great dinner and show. All just to show their gratitude to our Wounded Warriors. And now, even though it was getting dark, people were still out along the route to Nipawin. At almost every gravel road that met the highway, there'd be 3 or 4 people waving a flag and smiling and yelling thank you. And then just when I'm thinking it don't get much better than this, we pulled into Nipawin. And I'm here to tell you, I've never been more proud of my town as I was this night. There's over 500 of our town folks waiting there, honking horns with their lights on as we pulled up to the Legion Hall. To say the least, it had been a most memorable day. But the memories, they were just starting. Inside the Legion, while our volunteers were handing out room keys and getting everybody squared away, our Wounded Warriors were already starting to get to know one another. The common bond that so many of them missed was being rekindled. And many of them, they'd already shared with me the fact that they were beginning to feel like they were not alone. Next morning,
First thing, breakfast at the Elks Hall, served up by the ladies of the Royal Purple. Got us all off to a great start, and we headed to the river. We had a fleet of volunteer boats half a mile long. The Pineland Co-op packed lunch for us all, so we loaded up and headed upriver. You may recall I mentioned how the media people were all present. Well, let me tell you about one reporter in particular who stood out amongst all of them. She got in the boat with the warriors, she followed them, and talked to them. And most important of all, you could tell her genuine understanding when she filed this report.
Long ones!
Staff Sergeant Bobby Henline re-enlisted with the U.S. military after 9/11. He says he wanted to stand up for his country. On his third tour in Iraq in 2007, his Humvee was hit by a roadside bomb. He was the only survivor out of 5 soldiers in his vehicle.
I just had, 2 months ago, my 46th skin graft surgery. I also had my teeth fixed. I have what they call blue teeth. One blew that way and one blew that way. So now I got these pretty teeth.
Henline is now able to joke about his condition, but admits it's taken years to get here.
I used to pray that I'd just go to sleep and not wake up. You know, I thought it was a bigger burden on my family.
Henline and others here say that's the problem. These wounded warriors won't ask for help.
For a lot of soldiers, it's an act of courage, 2 forms of courage. One on the battlefield, fight or flight. Another one is seeking help. And I would say to soldiers that what I call NQR, not quite right, that's the only thing I can diagnose. If you're not quite right, go in and talk to somebody. I'd say that's all Canadians, for sure.
I found that when you're hurt inside and it's not visible, that people are a little harsher on you than they would be if you had a missing limb or whatever. So it makes things difficult for you sometimes, but talking to people that are in the same situation as I am has been very beneficial to me.
Over the last decade, the military has come a long way in recognizing the need to diagnose and treat post-traumatic stress disorder. But some soldiers still say there are gaps in the care they receive.
We're on the right track. It's just hopefully things will speed up a little bit. You know, we can get care to the ones that have slipped through the cracks.
As long as we ask for it. That's the issue. A lot of these guys got to ask for it, and it's there. Governments are involved. A lot of local nonprofits help out a lot. You know, the citizens realize they want to be there for the troops.
Johnston thinks mental health isn't just a Canadian Forces problem. He says it's a national problem that needs to be talked about. While it may have been hard for some of these wounded warriors to talk about their personal problems during this weekend getaway, participants say just being together is part of the healing process.
What a lot of folks don't understand is how the healing process is so much more effective when you can relate. And now that we have introduced an atmosphere where we can relate to other, armies from other countries, then there's really special bonds that are created there.
This isn't going to cure anybody. Who's kidding who? But, I think we're putting them in a better place to get better. That's my thoughts, I really do. This is, for some of them, they haven't had 3-4 days back-to-back good. And that's progress.
Minds broken by post-traumatic stress disorder, lost limbs, and questions about what the future holds. They are stresses these wounded warriors face. But for one weekend, their focus was on the battle at hand, reeling in a walleye from the waters of northern Saskatchewan. Tina Monteleone, CTV News, Nipawin.
A great day of fishing deserves a great dinner. And that's what the ladies at White Fox did for our wounded warriors. The whole town volunteered up an unforgettable evening, and ye doggy stuffed food was home-cooked and delicious. Topped off with entertainment by some of Canada's greatest. Tennille, Gary Philgard, Will Ardell, Jay Semko, Don and Don, Wyatt and Brett Kissin, all held forth. The wounded warriors, needless to say, went to bed with a mighty full stomach. It was another beautiful Saskatchewan morning. The Warriors, they was all out in the water early, and oh yeah, some took up golf for the very first time ever. Meanwhile, we were busy setting up for tonight's gala dinner. And when all this was going on, something extra special was happening. I'd often thought to myself, a man is only as strong as the woman who holds him. And folks, that morning at the Legion, all the Wounded Warriors women got together and shared their stories with one another. One wife, Mel Rustenberg, shared her thoughts in a poem which we're sharing with you now. We're very proud that she and her husband Joe chose to allow us into their lives in order to help others. Here's Mel and Joe Rustenberg.
I let you go a second time. You came back, the hurt and pain in your eyes soon fading to black. You stared a stare so dark and lifeless. It just didn't make any sense to me. I never thought my husband could get PTSD. But all day long I saw a lifeless man with a million-mile stare, jumping for no reason, angry at nothing, and always in despair. Through the night you'd toss and turn, you'd sweat, you'd cry. You'd always say, I should have died. I told you something was wrong, but all you would do was deny, paranoid beyond control. Something was going on you could not understand. You did not know which way to go. Who is this man? This man with no soul. The man I married was so much more. He cared, he cried, he laughed. He always kissed me goodnight. I demanded to get my husband back. This man next to me is just not right. There came a time I drew the line. You realized that now was the time. You served our country and paid the price, it's clear to see. More rough times than good seems like the way it shall be. But I have hope and faith that one day invisible wounds will disappear. Until that day, I will help fight the fight, be by your side day and night. For in this journey that we call our life, I see little hints of what used to be, and know that someday it will once more be my real love and me.
Melanie and Joe were amongst the 112 Wounded Warriors who attended the gala in their honor this night. When they entered the hall, cheers and then tears broke out, as many of our citizens met our Wounded Warriors for the very first time. They realized these are the brave young men and women that have stood in harm's way on our behalf. When it came time to ask the blessing of our dinner, Saskatchewan's Silver Cross mother, Patty Braun, and my dear friend Brenda Shute-Old led an honor guard of air cadets into the hall and sang the most memorable blessing any of us present had ever heard.
So
The hall looked totally awesome, and after an incredible dinner created by a genie, Glen Genie, the stars came out. We were royally entertained by rock and roll legend Bobby Curtola, Tennille, Michael Danzo, the Bluesettes, and Steve Haberman. And who will ever forget one of our most memorable Wounded Warriors, Bobby Henline. And then the master himself, Gordy Tapp. He celebrated his 90th birthday just before coming to Nipawin. And he shared with me later that in all his years of performing, this night stood out as one of the finest. Sunday morning gospel sing had the great Larry Krause, Avon Grace, and Yvonne St. Germain, all asking the good Lord for good weather to continue, and their prayers were answered. Sunday afternoon's Heroes Hoedown was blessed not only with great weather, but great talent, as Saskatchewan's finest stars volunteered their time and talent. Take a look at this poster. We had over 20 of our finest country music acts, plus some rock and rollers, all here to honor the Wounded Warriors and to entertain the thousands who showed up to show our troops their appreciation too. Was it all worth it? I believe in my heart and my soul that it was. Here's what some of our people said.
And I can tell you right now, we changed some lives this weekend. I know that on my heart, we changed some lives. You changed my life, I'll tell you straight. This province of Saskatchewan has got hearts as big as the province. The people here, you know, I'd say for anybody with post-traumatic stress disorder, come and live here. I'm in it. These people, they take you in. This is family, for God's sakes. This is family, friends, family, and they look after one another. And sadly, that doesn't happen a lot in some places.
I fully believe after being a part of it and witnessing it, this was so natural, so honest and innocent that if someone tried to follow this act, it would be staged. Yeah. And I agree, Blake. I don't think you'd get the same impact again. I think we should try. And I think this has to happen in another town and somebody else, and maybe pick up where this town left off, and you and Jim did. But I think it'd be a tough act to follow.
That's what this all was about. Was about our hearts opening up and doing whatever we could, but it was our soldiers that we did it for.
I think you've achieved your goal there, Blake, by having them know that people care and healing. You know, what more can you ask for?
Like when you guys talked on putting this whole big presentation together, and until you finally got there and saw how it went down and how organized and how big it actually turned out to be, the banquet was just, it was a Las Vegas style show. We just had a blast, and I went around in the crowd after the show and talked to some senior peoples there, and they just couldn't believe that we had something like this in the Nipawin Evergreen, not in the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas.
There were so many positive things out of this. It was all positive, to be honest with you. Everything that came out of this was doing what was best, and recognition of those veterans, and showcasing a weekend for them.
It's just as important for the community as it is for the Wounded Warriors, and I just encourage any community, we'll help you. We'll help you get started.
They can become the next little town that could.
Yeah, you bet.
And then about 10 days after Wounded Warriors weekend was over, I got this letter from one of our Wounded Warriors. I think he says it better than any of us ever could. The Wounded Warriors weekend had many life-altering effects on me. Not only did it challenge many of the fears I developed from my PTSD, fear of crowds, fear of meeting and interacting with strangers, fear of loud and sudden noises, it allowed me to rediscover a new sense of pride. After retiring 7 years ago, my medals went into a box and have not seen the light of day since. For a long time, I felt that by wearing my awards, I would attract too much attention or open myself up to the many curious questions I would get about them. It was like opening a door to the memories I cared not to remember or share with others.
Through the comfort of being amongst fellow veterans, and through the sheer kindness and generosity of the people of Nipawin and Saskatchewan, I was able to open that box, wear my medals, and feel that pride I once held for them.